I'm Martin McDonald, and this is going to be part of the two-person book club portfolio, and it's basically just a conversation with my friend Cameron, who did some of the writing for the album, and we're just going to talk about how we came up with parts and basically the journey it went up from its like inception to it being finalized. So it'll probably be a song by song structure. I've got some questions that my lovely fiance will read out to us, and we will just answer them. So
before we start, am I the second person?
Before we start,
I know, but before we start the questions, it's called two-person bit. I didn't realize I was the second person and two-person.
You're not.
Oh.
It's me.
Oh.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
It was actually me.
What? I thought it was me.
You have both.
You said
persons.
You said.
Oh, it's us.
So for your opening track, how did you originally come up with the idea for this opening track?
So I think it was just a lot of like the emo records and stuff that I like have quite melodic intros, like just short little introductions to the album. And I kind of wanted to do a similar thing. I can't remember. I think this was one of the first tracks I wrote, and it was basically just kind of summing up the kind of vibe for what I wanted the album to be. So I kind of just did like a little melodic intro with group voices from my friends, featuring Cameron, Abby, and
not me.
Not you,
I
don't think you wanted to be a part of it. But yeah,
I did that
just
thing.
with friends and just kind of like melodic intro to the album to set the tone, and it basically just kind of sums up a little bit of like my thought process going into it and stuff.
So what would you say the main message of the intro is? Is it just like an all-encompassing, this is what the whole vibe of the rest of the album's going to be like?
Yeah, well, it was basically just a reflection on like, it's quite like like dramatic, being like, it was just basically like, I don't know how to describe this because I feel like it'll be cringy if I do it.
Just do it.
Well, that's.
We embrace the cringe.
You're past that now.
I thought that was the theme of the album.
Yeah, I just thought that basically I was not treating people that well, including myself in my life, and it was kind of just like a reflection on that and after I pass and stuff. So
Pass what?
Maybe, to go all in on the themes in a minute and a half intro song, it does set a tone.
Yeah,
That it's going to be quite dramatic, quite heartfelt and quite full on.
yeah, that's a
As
good
well
way to
as
describe it.
as well as being soft.
Yeah.
As well, it's not always like angry or presented in that way. It's presented in a soft way.
Yeah, it's hard to like obviously like I know what I was thinking going into it, and then you try and put that feeling into like an art form that isn't so like on the nose with how you're feeling negatively about yourself, or so yeah, that was a very, very well put and exactly like what I was trying to convey with it. So
Yeah. So for track 2, obviously a very personal song. Do you want to talk a little bit about the idea behind this song, I Remember the Phone Call?
yeah, so basically that was just a reflection on when my dad passed away, and then just how I didn't really deal with it at the time. I kind of just like, yeah, it took me years to kind of deal with it, and this song was basically just addressing that and just yeah, like looking into like that day and just my relationship with my dad overall and stuff. So lyrically that's what it's about.
But I guess from my point of view of being the session drummer on that on that song specifically though, and like it's quite up tempo, it's quite fast, it feels quite frantic. It's not the most frantic that the album goes, but there's definitely a lot of energy and a lot of kind of feeling like there's something that's coming out or something that needs to come out, and that like I did feel that way when I was putting together the part, of like not really holding back too much on what I was gonna play. This is not the time to, even though it's like track 2, technically maybe first real track. This is not the time to keep anything back.
Yeah, like I like
personally.
the intro. It's just like, obviously it's got that kind of like little guitar riff, but then it comes in and the drums are instantly drivey and really catchy, and it really like, yeah, produces a lot of the drive. Like obviously it's just chords and stuff, but I feel like without that drum part it wouldn't have felt as like as fast, or like as you were saying, like the momentum of the album just like coming straight in. And I think the drums create a lot of that atmosphere, and it was like one of my favorite things about it, which just like I had this song and it was kind of what I imagined it being anyway, but just when I sent it to you and you came up with it, the part, and just sent that over, I was like, this is like actually amazing, like this is exactly what I wanted. And it was like, obviously the content's quite like emotional, so I didn't want it to be like a sad, like, although it is like content wise like quite sad, I wanted it to be still like, you know, all my songs are quite sad, so I need some element of it to be quite upbeat and like punchy and drivey and stuff, and I think you brought that. What was actually interesting about like this song is like I actually wrote it like on my way to work.
The words.
No, like the actual song.
That doesn't make sense.
I did the guitar melody into my...
With your
Yeah.
voice. Well, you said that on camera, so you're gonna have to find that voice recording.
So it was like dun 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 dun. I did like something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I
Nice.
wrote it kind of all like that.
That's very fun.
I will try and find the actual bit for it, but yeah, it was like, and then when I got home, I put it like, I was just like, oh, like what I'm singing, like what chords would go with that, and then I did like the melody that would match that kind of bit as well on the guitar. So that's how that one was made. This is the first song I've ever written like that, like just like coming up with like words and melody and stuff first, and then which was cool.
I guess like in general, like for both of you really, do you think like writing songs helps you process emotions like that? Like it kind of is like a cathartic experience, like when you can put it into words and music and kind of release it and let it go?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I feel like yeah is the only like answer to that, but
Well, there's maybe not like not always like a aspect of letting go to it all the time. Maybe like sometimes it's like it can be like you're dwelling on it more so than you're letting go of it, I think.
I definitely think this album in general was definitely like that. It was like just me kind of wrestling with some demons and stuff, like the older version of myself, and just kind of being like trying to find closure in the things that I was addressing. So yeah, so I think I definitely got some closure on things that had been bothering me for like a very long time through this album. So.
Yeah. Talking about track 3, These Halls, how did you come up with the initial idea for this song?
So the initial idea was just kind of chords. It was just like, I was like, oh, like, I think at the time, I can't remember the order in which I wrote stuff, but I had a lot of like songs that had kind of noodly bits, and I was like, I don't want the whole album to be kind of tappy and like, although like I mean I probably would love that, but I was like,
I was about to say I don't believe that.
yeah, I was gonna like
Yeah.
I definitely would love that, but I was like, I
variety.
want variety and some songs to sound different, so I was like, oh, like for this one I focused solely on like kind of just making it like more chordal than anything else, and making it like bit, like kind of thicker in sound, because like when I do like the kind of noodly stuff, I don't like having too much like obviously like distortion and stuff on it. I want it to be kind of clean, and you really hear those sort of melodic bits, but this one I was like kind of just want it thick, a lot of kind of nice tones in the guitars and stuff. Yeah. For your part, how did you come up with sections?
Well, it's, you know, this one, it's like...
Did we talk about that? I don't think we did we?
What?
Like, the idea for it. I don't think I came to you and was like, here's what I'm thinking.
No, I think I kind of... I had the idea to kind of have the drums coming from about halfway.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
I don't believe you brought it to me as like, this is going to be a mostly guitar intro.
I think that was cool actually, because I think actually now that you're saying that, like at the time I was like, oh, this can be just like your bog standard track that'll just like come in, guitar, everything all at once.
So
and
like
then
a phone call. At the, you know,
yeah, kind of like that, but like not as like kind of noodly and stuff. And I was like, oh, this will just be like a lot of the songs during the writing process. I was like, some of them do need to just like not be basic, but you need like ones that are going to be like possible single ones, and they need to be a bit like more manageable and stuff. And like, I guess maybe not the case, to be honest, but like just that was like my mentality. And then when I went round to yours and you're like, yeah, so thinking about like coming in like not at the start, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like that's like a completely different thing, but like I think that was like 100% the right way to go.
Yeah, well, you know, presented the idea and you were like, yes. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And then yeah, just I guess it, you know, in the context of the rest of them, it does make it you know, stand out. That's its kind of
I was gonna say
features. Is it like, you know, and it's not as if there's loads of other instrumentation before the drums kick in either. It's like listening to it the first time, you're like, oh, it sounds like it's just electric guitar and vocals, you know, and then you kind of get more instrumentation from the halfway point.
I think it's the drums that really like, because obviously the guitars are quite thick and stuff and chordy. It doesn't really leave much for like sections changing and stuff, and I think the drums really lead that. Like the changes, like there's some like really cool like drum fills and stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, well there's the section at the end where it goes to, you say you're so concerned with the distance, you know, that kind of outro section, and I believe it's the first time you hear that guitar in the song. That section hasn't happened before. What you do on the guitar there, and it's like a bit of an outro. So leading into that, a completely new section, you'd want, like, you know, it's tough to find a flow sometimes, because it's like you're hearing something new for the first time towards the end of a song. It can be kind of you know, the worry is that it might be kind of jarring. So you just kind of try and flow, and I think I managed to find like a nice flow between the section before on the toms into the outro section, which ends up being on the hats. And that's like, you know, quite a big voicing difference, but like a little combination, a little fill to kind of to flow it in with introducing the hats and the high end of the drum kit.
Yeah, it's cool.
Into the end of it.
It's like that little bit of ear candy though as well, you know, like just like as you're saying, like, oh, it's like introducing that bit so late, but like I love that bit comes in, and it's just like you don't do that kind of bit again, do you? It's just like to transition.
No, I also know that about you, that you love things that just happen once.
Yeah, because it makes you appreciate it more. Because if it happens again, you're like, oh, like, but like
I do feel the same way about
when it just happens once, and you have that feeling of being like, God, I wish they did that longer or did that more. But then if it was longer or more, it loses like the special.
Yeah, it doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah.
The impact isn't as.
So like that little bit, I think it's like my favorite bit in the song. Just when that bit comes in, I'm like, oh. And trying to mix, obviously doing the mixing on the album, trying to mix that in was like trying to make sure that was clear and mixed well, so everybody could appreciate it.
What is the song actually about?
What is that about? Yeah, so
This feels important. How did we forget that?
yeah, it's kind of like a mix of things. It takes kind of jumps about time wise, but once again it's about me and like the situations I find myself in. So like the opening is just like, it used to be, I guess, more emotionally like not unstable, but like I think I was just more reactive in my emotions, and like the opening to the song is kind of just like talking about that, and then it just kind of progresses through different bits in my life. So like it's not like a linear sort of thing, it just kind of picks up different bits. There's the second verse is like but you still hung around in the apartment. I can't remember the lyrics now.
Still hung around, still
Lingering in the apartment. A few subtle words for therapy is actually about you.
What did I do?
It was like talking about like when I was with like and stuff, and just how toxic that was, and then just like that was like a good part in those times and stuff. So like you were still like hanging about and just like being there for me during that time. So.
That's so funny that you like didn't pick up on that was about you, because I knew like first listen I was like, I bet that's like a reference to Cameron.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I didn't know that, but I haven't actually listened to the song yet, so that's just a little joke.
Just like, but like I wanted to include it in a form that was like, so it's not like very like obvious that's what it's about. I want like the music to be like, obviously like people interpret it in any way, and I think that's like my favorite things about like lyric writing. So I try and write in a way that's like kind of open-ended, so people can just like, oh, like what, maybe it was about this instead or something.
So for track 4, which is Manchester by the Sea Part 1, how did you come up with the idea for this track?
Well, emo is quite famous for just taking clips from stuff and applying music to it. Manchester by the Sea is like an amazing movie. Like watched it while I was like doing the writing process and stuff, and the character, the main character in it is also like quite a broken individual who's trying to get his life back on track, and kind of just ends up becoming like a role model for someone in the film, and you just see him kind of just making like adjustments and stuff. And yeah, I thought that was like basically a reflection on myself. Like obviously I talk about a lot of my past self in this, and I kind of just wanted to be like, hey, like I feel like this is very fitting, and the clip in question is just like a very nice bit, and I was like, I'm obviously in the genre of emo, so I would like to kind of just try and write music to a clip from like a film that was like in keeping with the themes of my own album, and which meant like, which I related to and found meaning in. So that's what I did. I played the clip, and then I just tried to write music to it, and then once I found like a kind of melody that I liked, I set like a BPM for it, and then just recorded to it.
And it's something you hear in emo every so often, and I it always like hits me, or like I really enjoy it, and it always hits me like in quite a cool way, because I always feel like it can kind of like, it can be a bit transformative of whatever the original thing was, and that kind of like taking something and doing something new to it, and maybe it comes out different, maybe it comes out like, often it just comes out way harder, or like like the whatever most like the emotional scene is happening can just feel like so much more dramatic or so much more meaningful with that, and like especially when you start to conceptualize that someone's like taken this and then made music to it, and that, so it obviously meant something to someone, and so hearing it as a finished product with transformed with new music, it's like I feel like I'm kind of hearing this because it meant something to someone and they've changed it.
I tried to pick a movie that was like also not like the generic clips that you go for.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, like really good though. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
So track 5, Chihuahuas Will Never Be Parrots. How did you come up with the idea for this song?
Well, the name was brought to life moments ago when the camera wasn't on and Evie was perched on my shoulder here. I'm bad for like naming my tracks, so it's always like the last thing that I do, and usually I just go for like a line that is in the song, and this time I'm not doing that.
You're gonna have to re-record.
Well, yeah, like to add that in somewhere.
How did you come up with the idea for this song?
Where did it start? You got some chords, you got some driving chords.
Yeah,
and then it's a combination of twiddlies too.
Yeah, it was a combination of both of them, and I think it was during like a practice. I can't remember if I was just strumming stuff at a frog costume practice, or maybe it was a practice at uni. But it was in a practice room, and I came up with these chords, and I was like, this sounds really nice. I was like, I want to do something with it. And then I came up with a twiddly bit as well. And then once again, I was like, this could be like a single sort of kind of one. So I was like, it could just alternate between the twiddlies and the sort of the chord structure of it. And yeah, I just alternated between like going between the two. Because usually it would be chords and then the second guitar would be doing the twiddly, but I wanted one guitar doing kind of both, and then the second guitar doing its own kind of thing. So this structure wise was like combining what I would usually do in two separate guitar parts into the one part, just to be a bit more adventurous.
Yeah, I remember you taking it to me, you know, I think it was quite a bare demo at the time. Listening to the final version, the vocals are a bit different and such, but yeah, I could just feel the pace and the feel and the chords and in the sections in between. I mean, this one was kind of a bit more open, or it wasn't as clear to me when I first heard it exactly what it was going to be like. The chords, obviously, you know, there's quite a nice driving backbeat that feels chill and feels, you know, nice to bop along to. But when those open sections come out, as you say, they're kind of combining two guitars almost to have like a tapping section as well as a chord section. Those tapping sections, a lot of the time when you just hear them in the guitar by itself and you're trying to write a part to it, it's not really clear.
Yeah,
it's one of the most open-ended kind of like, you know, the possibilities of what you could do as a drummer, you know, you can do really anything. However, it's like it can feel quite difficult to land somewhere or find something that actually works.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, I broke it down in a couple of ways. I was like, sometimes I'm going to keep the backbeat for it. So the song you kind of feel, you know, where you're still bopping along with the track. And other times I'm going to open it up and play the drum kit as if it was like a tapped section.
That's cool.
Because thanks. Because in the verse where the section's quite the tap section's quite short, you get back into the chorus quite quickly. I thought that's an opportunity to kind of open it up, because then you can get back into your nice drivey feel before too long, before really losing the sense of where you are as a listener in the song. So you get those fills. It's like a couple of kick drums, a little run on the snare, and then around the toms, and then a little couple of hits hi-hat, kind of little trill or a little flare at the very end of the phrase that leads back into the beat again. So you have a little bit out, you know, a little bit of space, a little bit outside the main kind of drivey beat, and then you get welcome back into it with a fill as well. And then there's the middle section where the guitar the chords go, and the kind of more riff feel comes back. And in that section, because it's a bit longer, I go for the kind of backbeat accompaniment rather than opening it up, where you get the kind of the snare starts landing at the start of the phrase on one, you know, because that's just like
familiar.
Yeah, it's like it's like a bit more of a downbeat themed phrasing or drum rhythm, just to kind of keep that toe tapping, as it were, just keep that, you know, you as a listener, after the click track goes off and it's mixed and it's exported, you know where that is. So even though the guitar is nice and free flowing, this song can keep driving. You know, you don't lose the pace, because it's another one that's like got a bit of tempo and a bit of feel, and yeah, and that, you know, that was my first thought, and I think I brought that to you.
Yeah.
I think you were happy with it. Just kind of feeling like not as open or flowy in like in the middle.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Just kind of keeping the song driving as it were.
Just while we're on that, like I actually like the thought process behind this was like I also normally do big endings for songs, usually always quite big, and then this time around I wanted it to instantly go from like the Manchester by the Sea clip straight into like a big sound, and then at the end of this song, obviously for it to just kind of all of it drip out and it just be like a little bit of guitar with the vocals, and then there's some drum in there just to keep the beat, but I wanted everything to drop out, and I wanted like instead of like this big climactic ending, I wanted the ending to be just like really really stripped back and almost like lead into like a really intimate section within the song. So
Yeah, it did feel different. It did feel a bit like not what I've usually heard you
yeah,
kind of come out with. And I think when we like did those drums at the end, they come back with like some toms and snare, and it's quite slow and it's quite, you know, floaty. And it sounds nice in the final product, but I think when we recorded it, I remember feeling a bit like, we'll lay this down, and if you want it, you know, without any drums by the end, you can just cut it.
yeah,
If you want it like completely free flowing and maybe even like lower or subtle ending, you can stir it back even more.
I think it's like my favorite section in the song.
That's rude.
So no, well, like as a whole.
I'm just kidding.
But I remember, like, I think this was like my favorite drums that you did in general, actually, because I remember coming out of this session when we did it, and I was just like it's interesting you talking about like kind of bringing like a tapping element to it, because those bits at the start that alternate between like I guess like the different sections within the verse and like the chords really like show that. And I remember recording it and just being like, God, this sounds like so cool. And then, as you say, you transition like second verse into that kind of steadier, familiar beat that like keeps the pace of it. And then I think once again that's the kind of thing that I'm like, that kind of intro verse like only happens once, and then the second time it's like something different. And I think that makes the first part of it be like, this is so cool, wish that would come back. But I think it basically does that one, the kind of obviously the fill section bit, and then second verse which is different, and then the outro which is different. So each bit is like evolving, and I guess drum wise as well, it's stripping back.
Very much. You know, there's like no high end
Yeah,
of the drum kit, no cymbals.
which is
It's
cool.
all of the toms, and you know, the snares in there, but that's as high end as it gets.
Do you want to share a wee bit about the meaning behind this song?
Yeah. Basically, it was about me missing a dose of my antidepressants for a while, and just like the sort of negativity that comes back when that happens, and just like my perception of the world around me and stuff. And then the medication that I'm on also helps me sleep. So I guess the final line of the song is like, I wish I could get better without you, but without you I can't sleep at night. It's basically just like, I wish I didn't need to take them, but they do help. But yeah, it's just annoying like that you miss like a couple of doses and your sense of stability is just kind of gone. So it was basically just that. Yeah,
I think it's one of my favourites that you've done, because like it is wrote like a love song or like
Yeah.
a heartbreak song, you know, when you says that you kind of like to leave it open-ended for kind of people to interpret themselves. I think that would be one that would probably be interpreted like that. Was
Yeah.
that on purpose that you did it
yeah,
that
yeah.
way?
Like I do everything like that. I basically don't like to make it too obvious as to what I'm talking about. But I remember we listened to it like a week ago, and you're like, "Hey, that's about like your and then like your antidepressants." I was like, "I know."
But
You're
I
like,
said
"Is it
that half
actually?"
joking
Yeah, you
as
were like, "Is it
well.
actually?" I was like, "Yeah." And you're like, "That's so cool."
Yeah.
And you went back and listened to it, and you're like, "That's like so like cool the way that you do
Yeah.
things like that." But yeah, I just prefer to write like that. I don't like I just want to write in a way that everybody can just feel a connection to or something, or get something from it, you know.
Yeah.
I think you managed to draw quite a nice balance in these songs. Like, you know, going back to like Phone Call or something, there's like a nice balance between, you know, it's open-ended, like a lot of songs are open-ended, and like you can feel like you can relate to the themes a lot, and they are about specific things, but it's written to be kind of open to interpretation. But I also think it's quite nice that you've kind of you zeroed in a little bit from that, and you've started writing a bit more circumstantially about specific events and stuff. Like something as like a listener I enjoyed was just kind of just that little bit more like date and time and place element to a lot of the subjects, and you know, it doesn't lose that kind of like instant or, you know, quite easy to relate to, or you know, open-ended. These themes can be applied to, these words can be applied to a lot of different situations, kind of aspects. But at the same time, it's quite interesting hearing someone sing about a specific event, and you know, and it comes up in emo a lot to like say people's names and say places' names. And I like it a lot for that, because a lot of the draw of emo, for me, and I think a lot of other emo fans, is like the human aspect. Or like people singing about stuff that's happened to them as a person, and you know, that's some of the things that happened to me, and it's like, I guess relatable in that aspect, but also like I just like hearing music that people have written.
So track 6, an honest reflection on a past self. How did you come up with the idea for this song?
I just came up with a tappy bit that I was like, I just wanted to do a song that had one section that repeated the whole time, and just, sorry, if I'm looking on the camera, I thought you were looking like because there was a wasp in the room or something.
No, I was just checking it was still recording.
Yeah, so I just wanted to come up with a guitar part that had like a melody that just repeated throughout the whole song, and instead of sections changing, I wanted the music, like other instruments and sections, to be introduced to it to give the feel of sections changing, but like the actual structure of the song was basically just the same. So it was just like another way to like be creative. I kind of like, going into it, I was like, obviously I had songs that had like builds and like big climactic endings, and then I spoke about like obviously stripping endings back, and then having chordal songs, like more melodic tapping songs, and then this was just another one that was like, just try and create a song that has kind of a spoken word element to it, and it's just like one melody throughout, and see what you can do with that creatively. So, and I think the drums change a lot of it. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin. I'll take it from here.
I was talking about Elf, man.
Oh.
Elf did the drums.
Beep 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 beep. Yeah, the drums for this one, a similar process to the other one where I kind of I came in a little later. I just didn't feel any. I think when you first brought it to me, it was like a demo, and it was guitar and vocals, which is obviously mostly what it still ended up being. But when it's that, you know, bare, I'm like, you know, am I coming in straight away on this? But I just didn't. I just felt like it's another one where it's just gonna, as you say, with your direction, to let it develop. You know, there's no need for it like to come in with anything until later. And the thought process was like, are the drums gonna develop, or how are they gonna develop? Is it gonna start with like, you know, just some high end, just some cymbals, just some like kicks, maybe a backbeat, and then the full drum rhythm will build itself over a length of time before reaching how it actually is at the end. And that's where I started with it. I think that's where I I began kind of like, you know, just like some like taps and a right cymbal, and then like trying to work it into a beat. And then somewhere down the line I was like, I don't really like this, or this isn't working, and came in with a beat, like halfway through, just like, you know, something that's got a bit of drive and it's all present from as soon as it starts. And then that beat develops a bit into some like crashier, splashier sections towards the end. But it really doesn't change much, and the development kind of happens over top. And I think that works with your direction of like things develop, although it's more in a sense of parts layer. The layers get added to the cake before it's ready to devour by the ending. I've lost my train of thought.
But yeah, that's
the layers get added. It's not that the parts themselves change and develop over time. It's the song changes and develop over time with extra instrumentation or extra parts.
What's interesting is I didn't realise the time signature. Do you remember?
Oh, isn't it funny?
Yeah, you were like, it's like 7/4 or something.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Yeah. And
like I just came up with a bit, and I was like, oh, like I just set like a click, and I think I left it on 4/4, but just took like the accents off it. And you were like, what what time signature is this? So I was like, I don't know. And then you counted it out. You're like, this is like 7/4 or something. And I was like, oh, that's funny. You're like, oh, well, at least you could put that in. Like, you experimented with different time signatures.
Except you haven't put that on, because what you just said is that you didn't mean to.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, I didn't actively go into it being like, I'm going to write a song in 7/4.
I think that is how most people write songs in 7/4.
But I wrote a song.
I'm going to do this.
I was like, I just created a section that I liked. And then I was like, I'm going to repeat it. And whatever signature that falls under, we will be at the mercy of that.
Yeah. I think like, it was a song I took like inspiration from, This Place is a Prison by Postal Service. And when I played you the part, I think you were quite quickly like, this reminds me of that. And I was like, I know how much you like that song.
Yeah, honestly, it's like the best song. It's like the best drum part that's ever been written. And then when you were doing stuff like that, I was like, this is so good.
Yeah. Like, a couple of little rolls on the hi-hats. You know, up there. And that's similar to that song. And then with the crashes come in a bit through it too.
It's interesting. I don't remember like having like an actual drum. Like obviously some of the songs we spoke about, I've been like, oh, I wanted the drums coming in from the start. But I think this was one that I was like, I don't really know what I want drum wise for it. I just like knew that the concept was just like I wanted to write a part that just like lasted the whole song.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever instrumentation would happen throughout that, we'd just like come up with. So yeah, it was like going into it not really knowing like how it was going to turn out, and like the drums were just like as you say, like as soon as you played that, and I was like, oh my god, like that's like amazing. And you were like, yeah, like it's just naturally what you were feeling like fit with it though, and it was like it just added so much to it, and it just like really filled out like the song in general and stuff, and just added like a lot of atmosphere and stuff to it as well. So
given that the track is called An Honest Reflection on a Past Self, is it too obvious to ask what the song is about?
I think this one's just like on the nose of just like clearly talking about like myself.
Yeah.
And I think like nothing else needs to be said on it more, to be honest. It's literally just like accountability, I guess, and just being like just very I can't say it any better than that, to be honest. It's just about taking accountability and just being like, this is things that weren't so great, you know, as I'm sure like everybody has those things, and then I'm not like that person anymore, but I think it's still important to sort of just be like, you know, those actions, although like I think acknowledging that they happened and that they weren't good traits or like good qualities or whatever. So.
Yeah. Okay, so track 7, Spice Girls. How did you come up with the idea for this song?
So basically I wanted to kind of do a midnight organ fight, or like Frightened Rabbit thing where they have like interludes spaced in throughout. So this was one of those things. So I've got like the Manchester by the Sea one, the opener, than this one, and it splits the album up into sort of sections. So this was the idea for that. I was like, oh, this will just be another little short clip. And then the song I just came up with, like I just came up with like an acoustic guitar part and the lyrics, which we can talk about like in a sec or whatever. But then I just was like, throughout my time like making this album, I've just been recording little like things that matter, or things that I take note of. So like if I'm in the room with like friends and I feel like a feeling from it, I will just hit record on my voice memos. And the intro to it is like a clip from a feeling, from a situation where I was feeling like a lot of love.
Okay, so what's the song about?
It's basically about like my past self was like always wanting to find love and have like just like force myself into situations of having like a relationship and stuff. And then this song was basically just realizing that like the love that I've been looking for and everything, or like just like feeling that I've lacked throughout like my whole life or whatever, has been like around me like the whole time. And it's like my friends and the people that I care about and the people that I'm with. So in amongst all the previous like looking back at myself and being like, oh, like this wasn't good and stuff, like there's the bit of, hey, everything that you were looking for though you now have and you're in a better place. And that's kind of just like a little snippet in there to kind of to show that.
So do you think that the theme of the song kind of transferred into the writing process at all, and the sounds and stuff that you used?
Yeah, definitely. Like I just, as I said, like I was trying to be more aware of like reflective, just like this whole year of writing was just like reflect, and that was like on past self and then current states as well. And I was like, just the realization of being like, hey, like you have like a very good life right now, like you've got like everything that you've ever wanted, all that stuff that you had in the past that was like, oh, like I'll never, like what if I never have this, or like I feel like now that I'm in a healthier space and that I've like been through therapy and stuff, I'm more like conscious of this stuff that I maybe overlooked. So this was kind of just like bringing awareness to that and acknowledging again to myself that, hey, you have this, and that's in keeping with the themes of stuff that I've talked about as well on the album. So it was just that. So yeah, it definitely influenced the writing.
Yeah.
And it's just like a little like 10-second bit, but yeah, I just felt very loved in that moment, so I wanted to include it in the album.
When you talk about the things that you like have now, you're looking back that you know you didn't have, and the things you do have now. Are you talking about the harmonica?
I am talking about the harmonica.
You
Bob
now,
Dylan harmonica.
You know, what? Why is it Bob? Isn't every
It's
harmonica a Bob Dylan harmonica?
It's like a Bob Dylan signature series one.
Sake. I quite like.
If you say the harmonica.
I like the harmonica. I quite like how it's a short song. It starts with a clip of like some friends chatting, and it feels, because of that, and I always feel this when there's like a clip of a moment in time, is that it feels like a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
The whole song feels like it's a thought. It's a representation of a feeling. Since the song's quite short, there's not much development. It feels like one thing. It feels like one moment or one feeling, and that feeling is the feeling you spoke about. Just kind of like, you know, some kind of good feeling of realization, one thought that comes and goes, and you know, not to diminish it, but it doesn't develop, it doesn't you know, change. It's one thing, it's one moment in time that is being documented.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going for. Just like an acknowledgement of like, as I was saying, just being like conscious of like how I was feeling, and like although it's important to reflect on like past selves and past behaviors, it's also important to reflect on like things that are like now and in the present, and that's kind of just what it was, just like a little timestamp of something that I thought was significant to me and the writing of this album.
So for track 8, Multicoloured Lights, how did you come up with the idea for this song?
I was listening to a lot of kind of La Dispute in the wind up for seeing them. And just like, yeah, just that, the storytelling, the structure, especially on the album Wildlife, it's very like, the structure supports sort of like the instrumentation is very reflective upon what's like going on like lyrically in the song. I kind of like was trying to just explore that kind of writing and stuff. So once again, it was just kind of, it started off as just chords as like a base for me to explore like lyrics and what I wanted to like talk about within the context, and then after that I then decided to mold the music to basically what I was saying, and that's how like my instrumentation worked for it.
I've had an idea.
You booted up. It's my turn.
I think I you know, I think you brought that to me, the kind of like like lyrically it's gonna move with the instrumentation, and the instrumentation is gonna be quite frantic. It's gonna be most likely the most frantic moment on of all the tracks is present in this song. And yeah, I just wanted to like bring that pace kind of back and forth between a few different feels in the first section. A halftime kind of drum beat transfers into a normal time, and then back out to a halftime in very quick succession and stuff like that. It does leave you feeling a bit like pushed and pulled as a listener, kind of like pulled and slowed down to the halftime, and then like pushed to go quick and then pulled again. It's all quite you know, unsettling as a listener. You like, without having that consistent like beat, you don't fully know where you are, and that kind of like discomfort was intentional, and then it flows into like a section on the toms for still within what I guess you'd call a verse, like the back and forth. I don't know what you'd call it, but that section on the toms where the vocals kind of continue. There's a lot of hits, and they're not like, and it's quite polyrhythmic. There's no like big firm backbeat other than like what the kicks may be doing, and then the odd touch of high end on the cymbals, kind of lining on beat one. It's all very. It feels fast, even though maybe the tempo isn't actually all that fast itself. Just with doing the kind of lots of subdivisions and lots of like you know, rolls on the toms, it gives like a big feeling of pace, and then that loops a few times. That feeling is like you stay in that frantic feeling for quite a while in this one, and I try to keep up the kind of pace and vibe until it kind of relents. There's no you know, it doesn't give over until those rotating two sections have finished and they don't come back. The middle section goes in, it comes down a bit, and then it's kind of like what you spoke about, having a big ending.
Yeah.
It is that kind of classic structure of what you consider to be classic for your writing, is like having quite a big ending. And it's there, and it's like maybe not as frantic as the first section, but it's quite big. And on the drums there's a lot of maybe some more downbeats, maybe a bit more concrete of a feeling. But it just kind of bangs it out to the end of the song, kind of thing. You just get all downbeat, all big impact until the end of it. Some little fun rhythmic stuff to close out, but you know, really just loud and crashy, big snare hits to finish off.
Yeah, it was like a vocal style that like it's weird exploring like I tried to be a bit more like hardcore singing with it.
But it's a genre, you don't have to do that.
Well, yeah, I know what I meant for like me, like my
Sure.
attempt at being like, oh yeah, like you're being like, oh yeah, like hardcore, like
Screamo.
vocals, yeah. And it was just like it's just like a full like different way of singing, and it was something I'd never experienced, like I experimented with before, and something I wanted to try. I was listening to a lot of like screamo bands and stuff, and as I say, I was listening to La Dispute at the time, and it just the way like Jordan, yeah, I was gonna say he effortlessly goes from like speaking to like screams, and it's just in the style that he's singing in, and I wanted to try and incorporate that and experiment with that in my own writing, and I think I managed to do it to a competent level. I don't think like
Yeah, you got that feeling on a few of those takes where you get like a bit of a growl, you get that kind of scream thing, and it's only on one word.
I don't know how to describe how I did it, but
going in and out of it.
it was spent the whole day trying to get it, and I was like, oh, it's just like I'm not a trained singer or anything, so obviously I don't really know too much about the voice. I'm sure someone with a lot more experience would be able to tell me, oh, you're doing this instead. But for me, just like playing with the feel of it and just trying to get it, and then finally getting it to the point where I was like, this is more along the lines, because I feel like if it didn't incorporate that kind of singing style, it would have sounded a bit off, you know, with the frantic like instrumentation, and that's what's cool about it. Like the instrumentation matches the sort of like frantic, panicked sort of singing and like the push of it, and I think the music conveys that, which is like quite cool. So.
Yeah.
It's definitely the one that was most hard to play.
Yeah.
It's the hardest for me to perform, but I got it. But there is that moment in the middle where the drums stop. Do you remember that? It goes do digga digga boo digga digga do digga digga ba digga digga, or it's something like the.
Do you stop completely?
No, sorry. So it's before that. It's in the tom section. Please stop. What inside from seeking light.
Ah, yeah.
You remember there's like an up.
Yeah.
And the drums, like there's a pause of like a beat.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to do that.
But it's cool though.
But I messed it up, and then I kept going with the taking out the end. You're like, I like that. It's
yeah, because like when I was listening to it,
that happened because it was hard to play.
I thought you were like just adding space for that bit before the transition.
It somehow ended like the last hit. It was like a snare on like an up, and then I managed to hit the down. And so it like sounded like it was intentional, but it wasn't, and it was just a symptom of like trying to perform in a frantic part with quite a lot of pace.
Well, I think the album's like full of bits like that, which is quite cool. Like I think like it's definitely not like it's like a DIY emo album. You know, it's not meant to be like perfect and high end. It's meant to have like those sort of like stories behind it and like within the music itself. So I think like little moments like that, and there's definitely bits in my playing and my singing as well, like that I'm like the perfectionist in me is like, oh, like I should probably change that, but like I don't want it to be like this like high end perfect thing. I want it to be just like just what it is.
Yeah, it's my favourite song of yours that's on the album, and actually I think maybe one of my favourite songs that you've ever done. I like how it is so different from everything you've done before. It just sounds really nice. When it comes to the like meaning behind the song, what was your kind of idea for that? What kind of feelings were you trying to invoke, or did you have when you were writing?
Once again, it was just like a review of my past self, and I know that sounds a bit like, oh yeah, you've done that, but like,
but that's what the album
the whole
is.
thing was just exploring that and just like really looking at things, and it was just like the start is obviously in reference to like Christmas, and like my upbringing obviously led to a lot of the issues that I had, and like I wasn't like there's times I'm like, oh, like I was really happy then, but it's like not because of those, like there's a lot more going on in those moments that you think you're happy in, and like in the grand scheme of things you weren't actually happy, you just had like a good day or something as like a kid. So but you don't really think like that, like as a kid. You're like, oh, like this isn't a thing, and then you like look back on it and you're like, hey, like maybe I was experiencing some sort of trauma or something from an early age. And then it goes into talking about like I found like solace in films and stuff that kind of rationalize like the behaviors that I developed like through like the causation of that. I developed like coping habits that were like not good, but I also saw them in movies that I adored, and I was like, I romanticized the idea of like there's like a film called like Blue Valentine and stuff, and Ryan Gosling's in it, and he's like things happen to him, he gets upset and he's like punching like a fence and a wall. I remember like, oh, like being like, that's me, like that, like at the time like really relating to it and being like, oh, like that's like, but like that's like really bad. Like really not a good trait, but I at the time I was like, oh, like that's oh, I really identify with that, and that's like not like cool, but I'm like
you enjoy seeing yourself represented.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, yeah, I guess that, yeah. But like, as I say, I'm like reflecting on it, and I'm like, that's not like a good thing to be doing that. And although it wasn't like hurting anyone other than myself, like that's the thing. Reflecting on it, I'm like, it was hurting the people that like were around me, because they wouldn't have wanted me to be doing that, and they wouldn't want to see me like hurting myself. So it's like kind of reflecting on that and being like, the ending is like, oh, it's crazy that I couldn't see like what I was doing to everyone I cared about, is kind of reflective of that kind of behavior. Just being like, oh, like I'm not hurting anyone, I'm just hurting myself. But that's just such a closed-minded way of thinking about it, because like if either of you were doing that, it would upset me, because I wouldn't want you hurting yourselves. So yeah, just thinking about that, and once again, like that's not okay behavior, and I'm just holding myself accountable for it. So
yeah. So track 9, Every Street Holds a Memory. How did the idea for this song come about?
Just on visits home over like holidays and stuff, I just realised I have like just unresolved issues and stuff with like my like Aberdeen, just like memories and stuff that I'm like, oh, like it just triggers like emotions. And this song was basically about like just addressing that in the form of music. Once again inspired by like emo, and like with like the tap parts and everything. I can't remember, I think I came up with the like everything all at once, to be honest, for this one. I don't think I did like sections separately. I think I just wrote the music and the lyrics and stuff at the same time, which was quite cool. I think it was just on one of those days where you feel like really creative and you're like, oh, I just feel like I need to like get this out. And I think this was just like from a day's work. I think I rewrote the second half lyric wise after it for like the finalization of it, but like the music and the first half of the lyrics were all done in the one day, like for me anyway. And then once, I can't even remember if I had the second part written for when we recorded together. I must have actually.
When you say the second part,
like lyrics, were all the lyrics there when
yeah.
we yeah okay, so yeah, I must have finished that obviously before bringing it to Cameron. So but it must have only been like a couple of days or something, and then yeah, brought it over to you and got your thoughts on what you
I think you I can't remember it entirely, but I think you brought it to me, and it was quite like, you know, this is gonna be a bit more of a classic song structure, again maybe like a bit more of a classic feel with some tap sections, but a lot of like, or you know, repeating sections with like quite a nice flow. And that's what I took into it. You know, you've got quite a nice steady beat, nice splashy hi-hats, kind of just vibe with in the verse, and again you bring it, you open it up to some nice tap sections, and it similarly to the other, it's I kind of went into it with like, let's just kind of keep the nice feel going.
Mhm.
And so the beat drops down a bit, I think the snares come out, and it's just like some hats and some kick to just kind of like ride through those tap sections.
Yeah.
Whilst like hitting some of the accents that those hits, those riffs hit them along with it, and then lead it back in with like, I got like a little floor tone just to kind of punctuate, and then drop back in to the verses or the songs sections again, and then quite like a drivey chorus with snares on the downbeat. Just what we felt, or just what I felt for the section, and you approved of, or said you liked. Just
It's hard to verbalize like what I think drums should be like, but every time you play, I'm like, yeah, this is what I had in my mind. Like,
we've worked together on for a while, so I feel a lot of the time like when you bring stuff, I can
we're on the same.
I can quite quickly like at least have a go on what I think you like, and then you can direct me from that starting point.
It's interesting to know, just while we're talking about like recording together, that like the tappy part in the verse, I just wanted to say like I had like a different section written for it. It wasn't like too different, but it just like the placement of the notes were a bit like, I mean, I don't know how you describe it, but when we recorded together, you had the idea of being like, oh, you should play the tap bit to like a beat, like you click the beat for me, and then it synced up with the drum like a lot more than what I had originally had. So I think like definitely like going into the recording space together and just listening to it and like bouncing ideas off one another and just noticing like little things like that and being like, oh, like you can maybe do it like this, and definitely like made the song like more cohesive overall.
So, final track 10, Conversations Through a Wall. How did you come up with this song?
I was listening to a track called Houses by This Is Pointless. Hadn't heard it before, and it was very reflective on I think it's the relationship between two brothers, and then that just got me kind of thinking about my family, and I was like, I kind of just felt inspired by that. So that track was acoustic and kind of lo-fi, and I was like, like I would love to do something like that. So I came up with basically the song and the lyrics in one sitting, but I recorded it. I was like, like I want it kind of like really like just room sound. So I recorded it in the ensuite bathroom, which has like kind of nice reverb through like the laptop speakers. And then I think I redid the vocal through like the guitar and everything, and the like everything was done through that kind of, and it gave like a nice vibe to the recording. It's just like a really simple guitar part. I think it's just like 2 sections just repeated throughout. But like the main focus was just like a kind of lo-fi, like kind of echoey, drony kind of guitar, like, and then just the content of the song, which was basically about like just family, like my family life, and like those who lived with me when I was like at home, and like sort of the situations that I brought home to them as a family, and it just kind of explored that as a concept and stuff. Yeah, I think just like the main thing was just like actually having like a lot of it is usually just being inspired by like a genre or like a band or something. So you try and like you listen to an album and you're like, I really love that, and like maybe I could try and do something like that. But like as soon as I heard this song, it just really like resonated with me, and I was like, I don't know what it was about it. It just made me like, I was like, the sound of it, and even just the way it was like constructed, I was like, it sounds really cool. I was like, I wonder if I could do like my own version of that, and just like my thought process was like, oh, like I wonder if I could get like a really low end sound coming through, like recorded on like a laptop microphone and an ensuite. And I think like the tone of the guitar in it is like really nice. The reverb like kind of like blends some bits, but like in a good way. Like it doesn't make it like muddy. It makes it like, I want to say it's like almost like a phase thing, but like I don't know how to describe it, but I just think it produced like quite a cool sound. And there was like no metronome. It was just all sort of natural, and it's the first one that I've kind of, but like I don't, like on re-listening to it, I don't think it's obvious that there's no metronome. I think it's it just is like all feeling, and I think that is like really nice. And it's the first one that like didn't have like a beat or a click track and stuff that I played to, and it's just like probably the rawest song on the album, which is like quite cool. And I like the idea of like closing in an album off with like that. Just, I feel like everybody does that, like the really raw, like kind of like acoustic-y one, and that's kind of what I wanted to finish the piece with. So yeah, so that was basically just like a track by track rundown of just our thoughts and like behind the process of how the songs came to life, and hopefully like you enjoyed hearing sort of the backstories to the songs and got some insight into how they were made, and just like basically each song's like inception and how we wrote them together. So thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you for asking the questions and filming, and thank you for being a part of it and for drumming.
What about the dogs?
Thank you for being a parrot. I didn't know how to end this.